welcome to Chuck's Guitar Geekery. Today, I'm finally coming to terms with the fact that my cheap downer power supply I got, I think over 10 years ago, long time ago. But it says it's isolated. As I've gotten more digital pedals on my board, I think it's proving that it's not isolated, so bit the bullet, time to upgrade it. So I'll put a screenshot of my video board up on here now and kind of walk you through my signal flow and because that gives me some unique power requirements. And I think this Cioks, I'm pretty sure they didn't pronounce it Cioks. I think I've heard other videos pronounce it that way, but let's see if it meets my kind of unique requirements. I know they have the DC-7 and all that can be easily expanded. I don't think this one is compatible with all the expansion packs because it has the AC output, because I would like to use this Hughes & Kettner 2-man preamp again. But it's always been noisy. It's always had a ground hum. So I'm hoping this power supply is actually isolated and will fix ground hum issues. But also, the Tone X1 has a ground hum. Everything I have on my power supply has a ground hum. I've been using a noise gate for the past couple months. It works pretty good, but I'd rather not have the hum to begin with. So, let me walk through my signal flow and kind of my unique power requirements here. And I think this one will do it. So, the absolute center of my video recording board I can't live without is a Digitech Trio Plus. I love doing the jam tracks at the beginning of every video. Really, that's the fun of me doing this. That's me getting any creative ideas I have out of my head. And it's always a challenge trying to get a good take. So the Digitech Trio Plus, I can create a quick backing track in seconds and I'm up and running. I can record videos very fast, get things done, keep moving. So I've always had a separate wall wart for that one. I always had a power strip like zip tied under the board, so I could have that plugged in separately because that needs 9 volts, 800 milliamps. So that's a very power hungry pedal. Then I recently got the Tone X1. Let me look at that. I believe that's around 300 milliamps that calls for. I also recently got the 2 Notes cab that calls for 300 some milliamps, 12 volt. And then the Hughes & Kettner that needs 12 volt AC, and it's always had a crazy ground hum. I like the way it sounds, but it's just always been way too noisy and I really haven't used it much. But the power supply that comes with it doesn't have a ground pin on it, so I have high hopes this is an actual isolated supply that will fix grounding issues. So I've also recently added the Zoom, the MS50G, which I think also requires around 300 milliamps of 9 volt. And then I also have, the tuner doesn't take much. I like having the Rat on my board because the Rat, I know what it sounds like. I like the way it sounds. Those don't need much power. And then the 4-channel looper doesn't need much power. It's just a couple LEDs it turns on, and frankly it would work without it. But so those are my unique power requirements, and I think this Cioks will meet that. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to show you how much ground noise there is with the way I have it set up. So I have the cab is on the 2 Notes cab has its own wall wart on the power strip that's mounted on top. The Trio Plus has its own wall wart. I have that on the one spot. The 2-man has its own plug on there, and then the Donner power supply is the last wall wart. So complicated setup. Let's see what it sounds like. Okay, so this is the before sample. So this is how noisy it is with the cheap power supply and having the separate power bricks, because I have this whole power strip mounted right here. Pretty much the signal flow, I'll go through that. The Trio Plus, as I said, is the center of everything. I plug it into that, goes out the effects send, goes through the Rat, to the tuner, into this 4-channel looper here. And the first channel is open. I use that when I send any effects that are pre-amp, you know, like overdrives and stuff like that. This first loop here is the Tone X1. Second loop is the Tube Man. Then this last loop is open for any time-based effects that pretty much go through the effects return. And I have the cab sim turned off on the Tone X1, so goes from there to this zoom for most of the time-based effects, the reverbs, the delays. It has a noise gate on it that I've been using. I don't know if you can even see the screen on this, but then it goes from there into the torpedo cab. From the torpedo cab back to the effects return of the Trio Plus, out of the headphone out into the recording device you are seeing and hear me through. So, I'm going to start, make sure I have the right one, yeah. So I have a separate, what's it called, preset for the Hughes and Kettner and a separate preamp for the Tone X1. And it's a combination of a vintage 30 and a greenback, and this one has a power amp sim in it for the Tube Man. So let's start with how noisy this one is. It's a noisy channel 2 is. Why tuner's important. Sorry, this is a very heavy board, kind of mounted on a flimsy TV tray. All right. This is how noisy it is. I need to tune again. This guitar has been sitting on the wall for quite some time. I don't use it much because it is one of my noisier guitars. So, actually, so the Rat going into that. The noise gate, though. It works pretty well on this zoom, surprisingly. Okay, so that was a Hughes and Kettner. Let's switch over to the Tone X, which I have its own preset for. Okay, so this is the clean of the two presets I have. This is of my Orange Rocker 15. And both of these speaker sims are a blend of a vintage 30 and a greenback. Clipping it a little bit. This is with the Rat on with it. That's how noisy this is. Or this is the dirty channel of that orange amp. So noisy this is. The noise gate works. Okay, so now I'm going to rewire this with the Cioks power supply. I'm not going to video that because I don't know how long it's going to take me. So I will come back with hopefully a much quieter board. Okay, so here I am. I have everything hooked up to the AC-10 from Cioks. It's still sloppy now. I just wanted to hook it up, make sure it works, and I will secure everything down and hide all the cables underneath once I'm done with this video. But yeah, not as big of a difference as I thought it would be, or as I was hoping it would be. It's a little neater now, I guess. Everything is being powered by the one power supply instead of having the power strip on here. So there is that. I mean, I guess a few things are still kind of underpowered. The Trio is getting 600 when it wants 800. I think the Tonex is getting 200 when it wants 300. The Torpedo Cab is getting all it needs, and I think the Zoom is getting 200 when it wants around 300. So those could be issues, but I could not find a power supply that does all of it. So that's one thing, but the Hughes and Kettner is still noisy. So, and I'm purposely doing this. This is one of my noisier guitars too. I may keep an eye out for more name brand pickups to put in here. I think that makes a difference. These are cheap pickups, but this is a clean channel on the Hughes and Kettner. Yeah, a little bright there. So now I have the Rat in a loop instead of in line with the rest of the signal. I felt like that helped some of the noise too. So this is with the noise gate on the Zoom over here. One thing I did find with the two notes here, because that's with a third-party IR. Let me try doing. I felt like it was a little less noisy. They have what's called arcade mode, where it's using like the software native to the two notes. So that's with the noise gate, but now let's see how the Tonex holds up here. So let's go to the presets I have for that. really have all the levels consistent between the toe necks and the Hughes and Kettner here, but let's try a different preset here. So this is now, it's a Tone Junkies capture of a Fender Pro, I believe. Still noisy with this guitar, so this is one of my noisier guitars, and I kind of did this on purpose for this experiment. Now let me switch to probably my quietest guitar as far as hum goes, so let me switch it out here. Okay, so I've changed nothing other than this guitar. I really don't know what I did differently wiring this guitar, but this is the quietest guitar I have hum-wise. I mean, let's turn the noise gate off. I mean, this is the noise gate off. Let's go back to the Hughes Kettner here. I mean, this is no noise gate. I mean, this is single coils with no noise gate. Humbucker. Single coils. For single coils, that's not the worst sound. Then the noise gate on. Okay, so to put a bow on this video, yes, having a better power supply makes it a little less noisy, maybe. I have to go back and listen to the sound samples back to back, but I think having a well-wired guitar does more for humming and buzzing than the power supply does. I mean, I'm not going to go through the effort to try to return this power supply. It's here. It's powering everything neatly. I'm going to get all the cables tucked underneath and make it look a little better, but this is going to be on the floor now, back out of sight. So I did change it so the rat is on this loop here, but what I'll do is, if I do like an overdrive or distortion pedal where I need it before the amp, I'll just unplug the rat and use that instead. The Tonex is definitely less noisy with this power supply. Hughes and Kettner, a little better. And I have several different IR pedals. I tried putting the more radar back on the board, and it's still the same amount of noise. So I went through a whole experiment trying to like go one pedal at a time, taking it out of the signal to see where the noise is coming from. And it's pretty much everything except the trio is adding noise. So I don't know. But everything you're hearing is funneled through the trio. So where exactly the noise is coming from? I mean, I have a light right here, I have a light there, I have lights there. I don't know, but I guess this power supply was worth it. We'll see. Nothing else to say. See y'all later.